Okay, so good morning. It's about 10:45 ish on Sunday, January 18th. And I have two more tier lists that I need to do, and I'm going to try to get the penultimate one done pretty lickety split quick because this is my tier list of things that I read in 2025. And as the year went on, I realized I don't have a lot here on this list. And reading is a pretty big category. That's books, audiobooks. I mean, some people might say if it's an audiobook, you're not really reading. Like, it's still a book, just in a different medium. Like, I count it. Like, visual novels, I count those. Any comics, whether it's like Western comics, manga, I count any and all of that. Unfortunately, this was a year where there just wasn't a lot that I read, as you can kind of tell. And a lot of it was front loaded. Like, I think by the end of March, I'd read most of everything on this list. Well, maybe not quite. I think Gunner Creek Court I read actually that's volume 1, that's volume 2. I think I read that a little bit earlier in the year. But anyways, this is what the list is going to be. So like I said, should be pretty quick. So to go over the tiers real quick, this is my favorite thing I read. These are the contenders for things I really loved. Or I guess contenders for my favorites, things I really loved. I respect it more than I like it. And then this, I'm kind of mixed on it. I think it's disappointing. I genuinely don't think I have anything here I would put in F tier or below that. Although I do have my DO tier, which is this is just for anything I stop. Not dropped, because that's the Snoop Dogg tier. If I drop it like it's hot, DO just means like I essentially called timeout. Time stopped on this particular thing, but I intend for time to roll on it again later. Let's just get to it pretty quick. So this is what is it called? I think it's Friendship in Disguise. They are a series of crossover comics between Friendship is Magic and Transformers. And I believe the initial premise is like Queen Chrysalis. I don't remember, like, I think she grabbed some kind of artifact. I don't know, maybe it was like the Alicorn amulet, I don't remember. But it's like some kind of artifact to increase her magic, and she's calling changelings from all around the multiverse to gather and be part of her army. So she summons the Autobots and the Decepticons, and they're like, yeah, I guess in a sense those are changelings in this sense, not in like a fairy comes and like takes your kid and replaces it with their own child. Like, they changeling. But I'm like, that's kind of fun. I like that idea. And it's essentially, I think I was personally going in hoping that it was more story focused, because I've read some of the Friendship is Magic comics. Like, that was back in the day, like as they were coming out. Like, that first Queen Chrysalis arc, I really like. Then what was it called? Like, Fiendship is Magic. Where like, here's a bunch of different like villain backstories, or not all backstories, because Chrysalis was a combination of like, here is some of her backstory, but also like a sequel to that first comic. And it was fantastic. I remember the King Sombra one was really interesting. It's like he has a much deeper character than I expected. And none of it ended up being present in the show when he came back in season 9, for better or for worse. But what were the other ones? There was a Nightmare Moon one that I thought was okay. There was a Tyrek one that I thought was like okay. Was the other one the Dazzlings? I think it was the Dazzlings, and that one was pretty fun when they're having like a rock off with Star Swirl appeared. It was like, okay, this is pretty dope. But I was hoping for something that was more like story based, especially because I think the ending of the first issue is literally Queen Chrysalis riding Tank Megatron. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of on board for what this is about to be. But instead, it's just like, okay, here's a short story of like, what is it? I think it's Rarity and what's her name? I think it's like RC dealing with Starscream. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is like okay. Like, Rarity has some pretty good lines, but eh. And then here's Rainbow Dash and this other Autobot whose name I don't remember, like having a race. And like, that's pretty fun. And then you have Fluttershy and Soundwave, and like Soundwave joins her tea party, and at the end drops a "Friendship superior," and I'm like, this is fun. This is cute." I feel like I'd probably put it in B because like when I heard that, dude, there's a Transformers Friendship is Magic comic crossover. I gotta read this because I think what had happened was it was right after I watched Transformers 1. I haven't done my movie tier list, but that movie's awesome and I absolutely loved it. And so I was on like a little bit of a Transformers kick. I was like, I kind of want to get into more Transformers stuff. Maybe I need to like rewatch Armada because I haven't seen that since I was a kid and I loved it. Maybe the rest of like the Unicron trilogy I should watch. Maybe I should watch some of these other shows. Like I've heard great things about Beast Wars and never seen it. I was like, all right, here's more Transformer stuff, and it's a crossover with one of my favorite series. Let's go. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Gunner Craig. Okay, Gunner Craig Court. So I read the first two volumes, at least like the volumes that were like physically released. So my buddy Jose has been gassing this up to me for years. He loves Gunner Craig Court. He highly recommends it. He's like, this has been ongoing for a really long time. I was caught up with it at one point, and then I stopped reading it specifically. So I would have a big catalog of stuff to like binge and catch up on. And I just haven't binged and caught up on it on a long time. But now that it's getting hardcovers, I can do that and I can kind of reread stuff that I had read before and kind of get back into the groove and back into the vibe of the story and the characters and the setting. And then I can read all the new stuff. And because he had been talking about it for a long time, I was really interested. So I borrowed his copies and I read volume one and I read volume two. And I remember volume one, I was like, this, I'm not crazy about the art style. I'm sorry, I just don't really like how it looks. But as it goes on, I think even by the end of volume 1, definitely in volume 2, the art style gets a lot better. Like, it very much seemed like this is someone, like, who had an idea and was working on it. It's this might sound kind of mean, but I don't mean it in that way. It's like their skill caught up to their idea. Like you see them improving as it goes along, you see them getting better. Or it's like the skill started to match the passion. And I think that's really, really cool. Like seeing an artist and a creator grow. I guess not necessarily in real time because I'm reading it way after the fact, but being able to see that, I'm like, that's actually really neat. Like, I'm really glad that, you stuck with it. Hell yeah. Overall, I remember liking volume one fine, but I definitely liked it a bit more as it went on. And I remember liking volume two a lot. And again, I think a big part of that was I'm really enjoying the art style. I think just more that I'm seeing of like the world and the lore, I think is getting really good. I like our two protagonists. I like their friendship. And some of the interesting places that their friendship is possibly going. Like I unfortunately I don't remember their names. Like I think it's Antimony is the main character. Oh, I can't remember the name of her friend. And I think she was actually like my favorite character. Actually no, I think my favorite character was I can't remember any names right now, but it was the dude that got stuck in like the doll body. Anyways, there's a bit where I think, like, she's talking to a friend of hers who just, like, got dumped by a guy or kinda, like, got ghosted by a guy, and it's like, "No, like, you're great, you're super pretty, like, you'll rebound, you got this, girl," and then the other friend's just like, "Are you coming on to me? Like, are you a lesbian?" Like, "What? No, like, 100% no. What the hell are you talking about?" Like, completely genuine, and then after that, it's something she starts to consider in her relationship with her best friend, like, "No, of course I'm not." Wait, am I? And just seeing like that kind of little seed and how it started to grow, I thought was really interesting. I don't know where that goes in volume 3. I haven't read it. I think volume 3 came out around November. I was like, okay, Jose, you got first dibs. I will read it afterwards. And I'm not actually sure if Jose has read it or not. But I feel like I would probably, I don't know if I want to put this in B. I might want to put it in like A minus. Think that sounds about right. That's more, there we go. I'd say that's about more A minus. This is A for sure. I don't know if I want to bump it up to S. I think I'll just keep it in A for now. Um, I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I don't even remember what this is called. What is it called? I didn't even write. Okay, so what I just did, I don't know if you saw it because I think I only have this specific tab shared, but I have a folder in front of me, which is just like, okay, here's all the thumbnails that I saved, which is the category like reading, comma, and then the title. I'm like, okay, let me check to see if I can find what the title of this thing is. And instead of actually writing the name, I just wrote the one where they scream at each other. So unfortunately, like I don't even remember what this is called, which is probably not a good sign. So I'm just gonna go and put it here because this is where it's going to go. What happened was Clay was having significant car trouble and essentially had to make an emergency stop at like a dealership so he could get a new car. Like I think that had happened the day before, and then the next day he was actually going to go get his get a new car. So I drove him, and while he was at the dealership, just kind of excuse me, finishing like the haggling, signing the paperwork, I was just chilling, and I see this screenshot on Twitter, and it's like this manga panel of these two characters. Like, what was it? It's something along the lines of, I want to explore your body because it's written in all caps. Like, I would love that too. Consent. Like, it was like, that's like how it was written. I was like, what is this? That was a lot. Like, one manga panel, but I don't know. That was really funny. And I started looking at the comments, and the comments were essentially saying, number one, this is really funny and really wholesome. Number two, this is exactly how the entire series is. It is a romance story about these two people that have no inner monologue because every thought they think is basically said out loud, and they have no indoor voice because all they do is shout at each other. But it's genuinely really fun and really sweet. So while I was just kind of waiting in the dealership, I was just reading through it and I didn't finish it. I don't remember how far I got. I think I read maybe like a couple volumes or so. But it was a good time. Like it was exactly what I was told it was going to be. It is two people with no inner monologue and no indoor voice starting to kind of bond and like each other and trying to figure out like how do I feel? How do I want to explore this? And it was like genuinely fun and genuinely cute. I just never got around to reading it again. Okay. So, no, I don't know if you saw that, but I had a pop up just saying because my computer has been wanting to restart for a long time, and like I don't want it to because I just have like a lot of tabs open. And then, because here's the thing, sometimes when I like restart my computer, either because I intentionally do so or it does it on its own, it's like, cool, you opened up Chrome again, here you go. All your tabs, no problem. Or it's like, okay, it doesn't do that, but I can just open my history, open it up, no problem. We're Gucci. Sometimes it just doesn't really let me do either, and I just lose everything I have up. And I would just kind of rather not that happen, but I need to do it soon anyways, because it'll probably force it at some point where it's like, oh, look, You had your computer plugged in overnight. Clearly, you wanted to restart. I need to take care of it. Anyways, this is volume one of Nas and Zakuro. It's the only one I read. I believe volume two did come out last year. I just never got around to reading it. So I wouldn't count it as that. I mean, I guess there's an argument that I should, but to me, like I caught up with where it was at the time. So I'm gonna leave it as its own thing. So I've been really interested in reading this for a while because Nos, which is the tall one, reminds like just looking at her design, like her appearance. She reminds me a lot of my character Susan. Mm. Oh boy. Um, I think I think Susan is a character I've talked about pretty sparsely over the years, but I talked about her in I think like my New Year's video, and I shared a piece of art of her, and I definitely intend to share more because I have a lot of art of Susan. Susan is it's weird to say that she's my mascot when it's like I don't really talk about her super often. Like my my picture here on YouTube, it's like my creator thumbnail or like my profile picture. That's what I want. My profile picture on YouTube is a Venonat riding a motorcycle. And I'm contemplating if I should change it. Like, should I just change it to like a picture of me, to my cat? Because I think on Patreon, it's just like this picture of Bahamut's face, which I love. Uh, I know a friend of mine did actually draw the Venona on the bike, and I'm contemplating. It's like maybe I should change it to that, or at least like for a bit. I don't know. I think that'd be really fun. It's just really cute. But to my point, Susan, it's weird to say that she is my mascot because I don't always like lead with her or present her. But in my head, Susan is my mascot character. I have so many pieces of art of her. You have a lot of yeah, sorry. Let me try that again. I'm gonna take a drink of water. Let me get a better drink. Okay. This is what I am trying to say. Across the many different story ideas and like verses that I have, Susan has kind of wormed her way into most of them. Not all of them. She is not going to show up in the visual novel. She is not a Severance character. But she shows up in a lot of other things. Sometimes just kind of like a minor character. It's like, look, the story was already intact, but I can throw Susan in there just as like a fun little cameo. And then in other stories, like in Orichalcum, Fleela is a really important character. And that is one of my favorite versions of her because I really kind of thought to myself, I want to take a Susan character and really get into the psychology of why is this person so like weird and off-putting? Like what experiences would make a Susan a Susan? And then in Isla, she's just a fun recurring character because that's originally what she was made in, like made for. And then I played her in my first D&D campaign and I just slip into Susan mode. You're playing her for like a year plus. Long tangent aside, this is very similar to how she looks. Like even just kind of the pose with like her standing and like her hands at a weird angle and just kind of the way her face looks and the body type. I'm like, this is just a manga about Susan. I gotta read this. The character could not be any more different. Like she is a Nos is a very sweet vampire lady looking after Zakuro, who's her I think it's her adopted daughter, if I remember correctly. Like I read this back in January. It's been a bit. But it's basically like a spooky lady and her like precocious hyper child living in like Halloween Town and the like little adventures that happen. I don't remember if it started getting more plot centric. I think there was like a two-part chapter in there at one point where it almost kind of started hinting at such. And again, like I remember liking it. I'm definitely interested in reading more of it. But my initial, like, I gotta read this was because of the Susan connection. And after I read it, which by the way, let me go ahead and rank it. I'll probably just like give it B. Like I think that's fair. Like I respect it fine. No, I feel like that's a little. Tell you what, I think I'll also kind of put it in A minus. But like that bit's a bit. It's not like I respect it more than I like it. It's like no, like I read it, I liked it, had a good time with it. I would not be opposed to reading more of it. I got what I wanted because I wanted to see this student looking character. And to my point, I'm trying to do art shares on Saturdays. Number one, because I wanted an alliteration, but number two, because it having a specific day where I'm like, this is the day of the week where I'm gonna just share some art I have, whether it's Susan or like something from the visual novel or just like another character I made, whatever, whatever. It helps having a specific date because it's the kind of thing that makes me know, oh, okay, I got to do this. Kind of like with Isla, where I'm like, okay, every 2 weeks, unless I specify otherwise, but like every 2 weeks, a chapter. Oh shoot, I kind of need to make sure I like sit down and work on the chapter for a bit, kind of thing. Like it keeps me honest. But since I'm talking about it, I might go and post this piece of art because I actually commissioned the artist. I think it's Raritu. I might be mispronouncing that, or I might just have it wrong. But I had them commission a piece of Nos and Susan with like an outfit swap. So like Susan is wearing the dress, and then Nos is wearing like Susan's sweater, and she's got the yellow spider. I'm like, oh, this is lovely. This is exactly what I wanted. It's great. Okay, seconds. Man, I really did read most of the stuff early in the year. It's like this January. Okay, because this was I think I read most of Seconds on the plane, and then I finished it like the next morning. So this was the very end of January. This I think was like New Year's Day. This was before my trip, so this was also January. This was pretty recent, like September, maybe. I think I looked it up, like really looked it up in September, and probably read it in October. This I read on my trip. I remember being on the beach at like Matador State Park reading this ding dang book. Ward was after the first trip, but before the second, and I think I read this. Okay. Monty Python and the Holy Grail had its anniversary last year. And I watched it in theaters for the anniversary. Like I'd seen the movie before, but I watched the anniversary. But before we went, maybe it was afterwards, but I think it was before we went to the movie. We went to Barnes and Noble because it was in the area, or maybe there was something specific we were looking. Actually, I think it's when I was shopping and I got this and this. I think I looked for this, but they didn't have it. And then that I like borrowed from a friend, and that's a visual novel. Anyways, I saw this and was like, yo, I gotta pick that up. So that also would have been probably before my trip. Actually, no. I think Monty Python was in March. So this was one of the first things I did when I got back because I think I finished this when I got back because I watched the movie right after. And then when Robert Pattinson goes, this is the skin of a killer, Bella, while he's like glistening in golden glitter. Oh gosh, that was so freaking funny. Oh, it was wonderful. Anyways, I'm sorry. Going on another tangent, but just kind of realizing, yeah, my reading this year was super front loaded. Kind of like how I think I finished listening to albums in May and then didn't do anything further. Um, I got to be better about this and keeping this more consistent. I am almost done with Catcher in the Rye. I'm hoping to finish it probably the next time I sit down and read it. which will hopefully be today, but I'm doing this and I want to play some more Clair Obscur because I'm at the monolith and I'm almost done. And when I'm done with it, then I can pick up Pi. And I don't mean that in a way where I'm like, I want to be done with the French game. Like, this game is great. I know there's a lot of side content, a lot of post game shit that I would be really down to play if it wasn't time for Trails. But I also got to make sure I work on Isla, that I got to ship Dota to, and I got to ship Portal to, and there is a lot already. Let me drink some more water, and then I can talk about seconds. Alright, this is not me trying to stall or delay. I just go on tangents sometimes. So, Seconds is a comic by Brian Lee O'Malley, best known for Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I have never read, and I feel like I should, but I've seen the movie and I loved it. And I watched what was the show? Was Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, or maybe that's like the name of the game. But excuse me. No, I think it is Takes Off because like the title, like in a way, kind of makes sense. Anyways, like I watched the show and I loved it. And I think what ended up happening was I watched the show near the end of 24, loved it, and then learned that this existed. And the premise is like a girl. What exactly? It's like it's a girl that's a chef, and she gets this. I don't remember exactly how it worked. I think it was like she could write on like a piece of paper something she wanted to undo, and then like it would just happen. But essentially, it's a woman who is able to redo her past mistakes and kind of the consequences that come from that. Like the entire world is rewritten, but you still have your memories. So you're not exactly sure of what all your relationships are right now, what's going on in your life. Relationships that you thought you had don't exactly happen any or aren't current, things like that. But also just the unintended consequences when you start messing with reality, both in the sense of, maybe this wasn't really what I wanted, but also in the sense of, well, there are unintended like cosmic consequences when you start messing with reality. With this very strong thematic core of life is like a staircase. Every step leads to the next. You have choice in your life, but the choices you make are largely determined by the person you are and the experiences you have, the personality you have, the support group around you or lack thereof, etc., etc. And even though you might look at someone else's staircase and think, man, their climb is way better than mine. Or you might look back on your staircase and think, I should not have taken that step. I should have taken something different. That was always the step that you were meant to take. For better, for worse, everything in between. That is your staircase. And you kind of got to own it. Because even if you do think you should have taken a different step, you can't. You are locked in and you got to make the best of it. And I kind of absolutely loved it and thought it was great. Oh man, I was like, do I have anything around me that could function as a pristine blade? I guess this key would be the closest. I mean, I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan, so like I wouldn't mind a keyblade, but the blade is your implement. It's instrument or implement? I want to say implement, but it might have been instrument. It's like the blade is your implement. No, it's got to be instrument. The blade is your instrument. You're going to need it if you're going to do this right. Or in like Act 3's, there was supposed to be a pristine blade. Oh gosh, just lay her. "You're supposed to slay her," which I don't think was actually a line in the game. I think that one is just a meme. But Slay the Princess is something I've been like kind of low key interested in for a couple years. I think I first heard about it in like 23, 24. It's like, okay, it is a visual novel where you play as like this faceless dude and you're just supposed to go slay a princess and you can do it or you cannot do it and it's just you, the princess, the narrator, and all the voices in your head, which depending on what you do to the princess, there will be another voice. Like, did you just kill her? Cool. Now you have this cold, murderous voice. Did you run away? You know, you might have because I think there's a couple different coward voice. Dude, well, what was that one? Was that the Wraith? I want to say that was the Wraith. That one was crazy. But essentially, depending on what you do, the princess will change, and then you confront that different version of the princess, and then you might confront another version of that princess. Like, there are versions of the princess that are basically become god we will become as gods, but, like, that become gods. There are some that are just, like, unga bunga, like, "I wanna fight you." There are some who become vengeful spirits. I think my favorite routes, trying to just like go through the game in my head, was happily ever after was my favorite thing in the game. Aside from maybe just the ending or like the ending that I got. But happily ever after, Princess and the Dragon, that one was weird. Um I don't remember the names of the more like Unga Bunga princesses, but those are I think one of the I'm just like, I didn't hear no bell. You just keep getting up. Razor was definitely one of my favorites. I think it was Thorn. I don't remember what's before. It's either like Thorn goes into Witch or it's Witch goes into Thorn. I really liked that storyline. Heart, lungs, liver, nerves, heart, lungs, liver, nerves. I don't think that was one of my favorites, but it's very clearly to me one of the most memorable parts of the game. Um, Stranger, because that was the first one I got. And I remember talking to Jose when he played, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't super get into it. I love. I'm just gonna put this at double S. Like, this is my favorite thing I read this year. I loved it. I guess to make it, I think the idea is really cool. I think the execution of the idea is also really, really good and really cool. There were definitely some moments that I just liked, and there were some that really resonated with me. It's the reason Happily Ever After is my favorite, is just that idea of being trapped in a happily ever after and how uncomfortable it is. But then that moment at the end when you're dancing under the stars. And it's that idea of like you can be with someone for a really long time, but the love is gone, or maybe you never truly loved them, you didn't truly know them, but you can still like nurse that spark because that can still be in there. It's like it's really not too late to find love or to really have that connection. But fundamentally, Slay the Princess is a story about change and perception and how perception equals reality in a way that I found like really cool and creative, and by the end really impactful. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, so at the end of 2024, I had the pleasure of watching I might be mispronouncing his name, but like Yodorovsky's Dune, which is the story of this guy who's like, okay, I was going to make a Dune adaptation, And it was gonna be like basically Dune in name only, because I had my own crazy ideas about what I was gonna do when I got my hands on this story. And here's the story of my unmade movie and me like assembling my JRPG party to make this project and why eventually it didn't go through. With probably my favorite part, aside from HR Keeper, just basically going like, yeah, here's the stuff I had designed for the Harkonnens, and yeah, we didn't actually get to do it, and then I worked on Alien and just kind of used this as like a story because it's pretty Alien adjacent and it's awesome. But is when Salvador Dali gets involved in the project, and he's like, "Okay, this is the guy I wanted to play the Emperor. I needed Salvador Dali." But he wouldn't be in the movie unless he was the highest paid actor. That was his that was his thing. And I couldn't justify that because he's not in the movie for very long. It's gonna be like 6 minutes. I can't pay him more than anyone else. And then I realized, what if it's not the highest paid contract? Like, here's $100 million for 6 minutes. What if I pay him by the minute? And I tell him, I will give you $100,000 a minute. And Dali's response is, then I will be the $100,000 a minute man. And it's awesome and it's cool as hell. The Incal is essentially the story that was born from the unmade movie. It's like, here's all the crazy ideas I have. I'm gonna make something out of it. And he worked with the artist, I believe it was like the artist who did the storyboards for the unmade movie. They worked together and made this. The Incal is the story of my boy John DeFool and his fool's journey. Because I remember reading and being like, there are points here where I'm like, this definitely feels like the tarot journey, especially by the end. And some parts that I don't know, like if I really sat and thought about it, I could probably make some more connections, but I can see it. It is a story that I remember as I was going through it being like, there's times where this is like really cool and I'm really invested. And there's times where I'm just not as invested in the plot or in the characters. But I think the world is really cool and I love the themes. It is like at its core a story about faith, about believing in something higher than yourself and believing that there is a light. And this light is something that has a plan and a purpose for you. And as a man of faith in God and someone who, it's kind of a weird way of phrasing it, but I feel like I've almost had like a renaissance in my faith over the past couple years. It really, really resonated with me. Like, even when things aren't going well, even when you cannot see a way forward, you have to believe, you have to have faith. You walk by faith, not by sight. And so the thing with the Incal, I'm like, in terms of like its plot and its characters, it's fine. Like, it might be around like here-ish. But based on the themes and resonance alone, I feel like I have to put it in S. And it almost feels a little generous, but I'm like, I kind of don't care. Because I'm going to walk by faith, not by sight. And this is where I'm going to put it. So there we go. I'm just going to put the rest of these in the middle of the screen. So we can just maybe make this a little bit easier. Okay. The Eye of Argon. So I have heard two backstories for the Eye of Argon that are completely different. And honestly, depending on which one is accurate, kind of affect my ranking, but I will rank it based on the one that I think is accurate. What I had initially heard is that it's a short story, it's a short fantasy story, and it's known for being possibly the worst piece of fiction like ever made. Like, it's in that kind of contender with just how mauve the prose is. Like, it's not even purple. Like, this is like a strong, violent prose, and how a lot of it just doesn't even make sense. And, your main character, like his favorite word is just wench, and it's like really horny and really violent, but like it's just a mess. Story number one is that it was a joke written by a group of students. Or excuse me, it's either like was a group of students or like a group of authors who were like, people will publish anything. Like there are some like journals or magazines that are like so desperate they would publish anything. So let's write something that is absolute trash because they will publish it even though it's trash and we get to laugh at them and with us, and they wrote The Eye of Argon. And that's really funny and I love that. And if that's true, I'd probably put this in like A. I don't know if I'd quite go that high, but I'd put it in like a higher tier. It's like, yeah, they did exactly what they set out to do, and it made me laugh. Like there was a point where I was like, I'm gonna read all of this out loud. And I was reading it out loud to Clay, and I couldn't. And part of it is because I was laughing so hard, and part of it was because Clay's like, this is like melting my brain. I don't want to listen to this. So that's story number one. Story number two is it was written in earnest. It was written by, I believe it was a student. I don't remember if he was a literature student or if he was like in another program, but writing and reading was a hobby of his. And he wrote a short story and he sent it to a magazine and it got published. And then everyone started making fun of it because of how bad it was, to the point where he never wrote again, or at least like never shared anything he wrote because of how ashamed he was. And that's genuinely heartbreaking. Is this good? No. Is the first thing I ever wrote good? No. Um, I've been writing since I was 9. It started in 4th grade journal time, and I basically wrote like a Dragon Ball Z Pokemon crossover fan fiction thing, and also just kept including like the students from my class who were like all okay with it. And it wasn't good, and it was a total mess, and it would get laughed at like if I like brought it back or did anything with it. But I enjoyed it, and it sparked a genuine love for writing for me. And I had a novel published, put air quotes, because I'm now a little bit more well versed in this. And like, I think that was a vanity publisher where it's, hey, you pay us and then we'll publish your book. And then you can say, I'm a published author. Whereas me, I was like, I kind of want to get published on my own merits, but I don't really know how this works. So maybe I do have to pay you money to publish me. Yay. And it was a book that wasn't particularly good. There's still some things about it that I like and that I enjoy, and I think it was a very important building block for me as a writer to have that experience with that story, to see a lot of the things that I liked and all of the things that I don't and that didn't work, etc., because you build on your experiences. What is it? It's like the rule of 10,000 hours or 100,000 hours where you're not going to become an expert at something overnight. Like you have to put in a certain amount of time, a certain amount of hours to reach that status. And yeah, there's going to be a point where you're just a beginner and you suck. And then there's a point where like you're a little bit better. You still kind of suck, but you can see the improvement, etc., etc., etc. It's one of the reasons why I love Look Back so much. It very much is kind of about that feeling of like seeing yourself improve, but then you kind of hit that wall where you are getting better, but it's not necessarily like you can't even see your own progress anymore, especially when you're comparing yourself to other people, and just how disheartening that is. And that is what this is. This was someone who wrote something and they liked it and got laughed out of the building. And because of that, they dropped it and they didn't stick with it. Their writing didn't improve and their passion died. And that makes me really sad. And so for that alone, I am at least going to give it respect. Because even though I don't think it's good, I can respect that someone wrote something and they put it out there. Then we get this. I'm going to be honest, I don't even think we're going to use a D tier because I'm not going to put that in there. And these definitely aren't going in there. I don't even. Eh, boom. I don't even think we're going to end up using a C tier by the end. Anyway, sorry. We'll figure it out as we'll go as we go. The Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined. If you are not familiar with this, this is gender swapped Twilight to the point where the prose, I think, is like 90%, if not higher, literally word for word, bar for bar, just Twilight. But the genders of basically everyone are flipped. I think the only characters that stay are Renee and Charlie. I think Meyer had said like there's like one or two other like super minor characters to the point where it's like it kind of wasn't even worth changing. Everyone else has a different gender. It's like oh gosh, trying to remember the names. So Bella is Bo, Edward is Edith, spelled with a Y. What was Jacob? Can't remember. I want to say it's like Jessica, but I don't think so. But I think it's something close to that. I'm trying to remember what some of the other names are. Because but now I can't actually remember some of like the names from Twilight. Like I think there was a guy named Tyler, and now he's a girl named Taylor. Like it's stuff like that. It's Let me get another drink of water. What I can say, there's a part of me that loves it, there's a part of me that hates it, and then there's another part of me that loves it for a different reason. There is the part of me that loves it because of just how funny it is that like I took this book and I flipped the genders, and that's basically all I did, and I still made a ton of money. And it's that part of me that's also like, a lot because the way I learned that this existed was I saw a meme about how Twilight, like a gender swap Twilight, like you're a teenage boy that blah 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 blah, but all the girls want you, and then you're torn between a dommy mommy vampire that wants to kill you, but she can't because she's so into you, but it's dangerous to be around her, or like this hot Native American werewolf that like wants to protect you from the dommy mommy vampire, and the response to it was just like, oh, I get it now. I was like, that's really funny, and then realized and learned, oh, this exists. Is is this specifically a counter to the like, well, still a better love story than Twilight, man. Like Twilight sucks, blah 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 blah. It's just, female self-insert fan fiction. Like, okay, okay, assholes. I'm just gonna flip the genders and let's see how y'all like it. If you were a teenage boy reading this, or like a young adult boy, whatever, you would get into this too. I find that really funny. If I'm being 100% honest, reading it from that perspective, Edith is still terrifying. And not in just the, yeah, the Dommy Mommy vampire that wants to, drain me dry. It is the, yeah, she watches me sleep and has been doing it for like weeks. And she thought that was okay. Like, there's There's a lot of I wouldn't even call them red flags. Like, if this is, like, mauve prose, Edith's flags are fucking crimson, man. It's there's just a lot of moment I don't remember them all from the top of my head, but I remember making a video about it. I was like, "Dude, like, here's some creepy shit she does." There is a lot of gaslighting. And you can make the argument if you wanna be completely fair. It's like, well, it's a vampire. You gotta keep the masquerade, especially when you get to the other books like the Volturi and blah, 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 blah. It's like, sure, you can justify it. There is a lot of gaslighting in addition to the stalking. And yeah, this is a very vulnerable person who's always like tripping over themselves and blah 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 and putting themselves in danger and Edith's got to be there to save the day. This is stalking and it is really really creepy. That all being said, there is a scene in which Edith buys Bo like dinner and buys him a drink, like just gives him a Coke. And then when he starts drinking it, she just says, "Good boy." And I'm like, okay, I would melt. Like, I can't even lie. I would have melted. I get it. So there's the part of me that loves it for just like, this exists and I think it's hilarious. And while it doesn't quite work for me in that way, it almost does. And I think it's so funny that it's great. There's the part of me that hates it for just, this has got to be the laziest thing I've ever heard in my life. You took the book, kept it like 90% the same, and just slightly changed the names and the pronouns. This got published. People read this. I mean, I'm reading it, so I guess people did. I guess it worked, but wow. I'm kind of offended that this exists. Like, as much as I think it's funny, it bothers me. Which is why I'm really glad I read her forward. And you can make an argument that it's like, yeah, this was 100% just a lazy cash grab, and this is just something she said to like justify it. Sure. But it's something I can kind of believe, where she essentially says, yeah, like I wrote Twilight and it's, made me incredibly successful and it's great and I'm really happy with it and I'm really proud of it. There are a lot of things in the book that just bother me as the person who wrote it, where I'm like, I could have done this, or I should have done this, or maybe there's like some like a sentence that always bothered me, and then after it was published, I went, now this is what I should have wrote. Dang it. And so while most of the book is the same, there are some changes because they're even if they're small and not that important, there are things that have bothered me for years, and I get to write the best version of this story. At least, like, maybe not in terms of, like, it's better with the gender flip kind of thing. It's, like, just some of the, like, more minor details. That I really liked. That part of me as a writer going, having the ability to revisit an earlier work and change it so that it kind of more reflects your vision of the story. Especially with I wanna say this. When I look at Isla and Orichalcum, Isla is something I am currently posting, but it's something I've already written. And when I look at what I previously wrote and the revisions I am making to it now, they are very different stories. Fundamentally the same. It's the same setting, more or less. There's some changes. But I'd say it's like 90% the same setting, like 95% the same characters, the same story, the same events. But I genuinely look at the old version. I'm like, there are definitely some like lines that are worth keeping, and I try to keep them when I come around to them. But this feels inferior. Like I genuinely feel like I am a better writer now than I was back then. But kind of like what I'm getting to here. It's all about being able to have those experiences, being able to learn and get better. And I'm glad that I can look back on this previous version of the story and go, I can fix this. And I feel like I am. And I look at Orichalcum and I'm like, man, I was trying to get this published for a while. Like I was sending query letters, I was sending it out to agents, and I am so glad nobody took this book because if they did, it would have been a vastly inferior version. Like there are so many things that are in the published version that weren't in earlier versions that I was trying to send out. And some of it is just, yeah, I think the prose is way better. It's like I genuinely think like my use of language is better than it was previously. It's a lot more concise, which is something I was really trying to work on in later revisions. But even just the whole that without going into spoilers for my book, but the which could have been on this tier list. I read it several times this year. But the whole like Uncle Rudolph aspect was something that was not in the original novel. Like Makoto just always referred to him as father, and that was their relationship. But I rewrote the prologue, which was also a big deal because it's fundamentally the same. It's just a lot of it is just the prose of it is different in a way that makes it way more impactful. At least I think so. And people that have read both versions are like, yeah, this is way fucking better. I'm like, yeah, that had ripple effects that made the book as a whole, I think, far stronger. So I'm weirdly enough, it's like I'm so glad it was rejected because I had the chance to fix it. So I can 100% understand Meyer saying, I'm very happy with my book, but there are things that have always bothered me and I've had the chance to fix them. So if I'm being honest, I think I would put it, I'd probably actually put it here because I had a fun time reading it. It's like, yes, there's a part of me that loves it for the idea. There's part of me that hates it for how lazy it is. And the part of me that loves it because the author, had a chance to fix it. As for the quality of it, it's fucking Twilight. It's a fun book to read. Whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you're someone like me who's in the middle, where I'm like, when it comes to like the romance, boy, I don't think it works. Sometimes to a concerning degree, and sometimes where I'm just like, I am laughing. Like, this is pretty fun. But I oftentimes feel like I'm laughing with the novel than at the novel. But when you get to vampire shit, like James, or I don't remember what female James was. Was it like Jamie? I don't even think it was, but and like the way that she hunts Bella Bow and like corners him is really cool and really clever. The way that vampire superpowers work, or like I'm having a ball with this. I don't think we don't get Jasper's backstory in this book. I think it's maybe not till Eclipse. But even still, like a lot of the Cullen backstory, like Edward's backstory is crazy. Carlisle's backstory is crazy. Like this is really cool, interesting shit. Rose, what is her name? Is it Rosalie? No, Renee's me is the dog. I think it is Rosalie. Something super close to that. Anyways, yeah, I don't think you get her backstory until book 3 either. That crazy, like that is straight up out of Kill Bill with vampires, and it's awesome. The scene where they're playing baseball and they're like, yeah, so we only play baseball during a thunderstorm because we're so strong when we hit the ball, it just like cracks and it like explodes. Oh, that is so cool. And then the other vampires hunting in the area show up specifically because they hear other vampires playing baseball and are dead ass like, dude, we heard a game. Can we play too? That's just so fun. Like, I love this. There are genuine things in Twilight that I can say I love. And like, I'm glad I experienced it unironically. There's a lot of ironic love too. It's Twilight. But yeah, here we go. Ward has to go down here because I read the first 5 volumes and I think I was near the end of volume 6. And then I went on my trip and it basically killed all my momentum. And I got back from my trip and like started getting back into it and I just stopped. It was not at all me dropping it because I was liking Ward a lot. As much as Worm, probably not. But also, like, I had 31 arcs of Worm that I had read, and I feel like I still remember pretty well. Ward, I was only in part 6. Like, it's taking its time, but I'm still enjoying it. I'm really liking our main cast, our ragtag group of misfits, which they very much are, even more so than the Underside. I almost call them Outlanders. Like, where the hell did that come from? That sorry, I was like, that would be a fitting name for the Travelers. I just remember, like, yeah, the Travelers is easily one of the best parts of Worm. And I can say that about a lot of different parts of Worm. But I love exploring like post Gold Morning. Can't even say the world, just like reality because it's a multiverse story at this point. I think it's really cool and it's really interesting. I like Vicky as a protagonist quite a bit. She's very different from Taylor. I can kind of see some similarities in a sense, but I'm like this Taylor is a fundamentally misanthropic person, while Victoria is someone who just fundamentally wants to help other people. Like I talked about Dispatch when I was talking about my video game list and how I played Robert as someone who is I want to help people. That is the core of who I am, but I will get my hands dirty to do it. And I feel like him, like the way I played him is somewhere in the middle between Taylor and Victoria. Victoria is that I fundamentally want to help people. Taylor is I fundamentally want to punish people that hurt others. I would like to protect people, but I'm also going to do it my way. And it is ruthless. And I feel like Victoria, at least so far, feels like there's some lines she won't cross. Taylor just never really has those. That's not true. Taylor has those and then crosses them later, anyways. Which, yeah, it's like I fundamentally want to punish bad people, and I will do it by whatever means necessary. I would say from like what I read, Ward would at least be up here, probably here, if I'm being honest. But also because I'm still in the process and still early, I would put it down here. And then tell you what, this is not going to go in C. It's probably not even going to go in B. I'm just going to get rid of the C tier because nothing is actually going to go in here. Ah, wait, I hit the wrong button. That was muscle memory because usually I'm just adding rows above or below. Okay, so this is Warriors Into the Wild, the also the visual novel, the graphic novel. Thank you. So the original series of Warriors, I call it my favorite book series. If I were to really be pressed on that, I could maybe end up deciding something else. Like I don't know if Worm counts. I might pick Worm. Surely Worm was so freaking good, man. Warriors is up there for me. I like to refer to it as at Game of Thrones, or like it's Game of Thrones for a younger audience, but it is fundamentally a story about politics and backstabbing. In a way, it's about sex. Like it's not graphic, but you have a lot of forbidden love, and like who is the father of these characters? Like the whole R plus L equals J. That's basically Power of Three in its own way. You have a lot of people dying. And it starts in book one, and it's great. I'm just a really big fan of this series, and learning that, like, oh yeah, there's graphic. It's also like 9 arcs now. I like to call them seasons, like it's a TV show. I think when I was at the bookstore the other day and I saw a new arc that I hadn't heard of, I was like, "What is this? Like season 9? No, no, they can't be that far. There's no way. There's 9 seasons. It ended in the Last Hope, and then like season 5 was like its own like distant prologue thing, and I know there was Bramble Star's Revenge, and then that started season 6. There's no way this is actually the start of season 9. It's going on for that long. What the hell? But seeing that there was a graphic novel, like I had to read it, and I had a good time with it. Like it was a nice nostalgic stroll down memory lane, essentially reading the first book again with some of book 2 in there as well. Because they kind of it was like 80%, maybe 85% Into the Wild, and then like 15% Fire and Ice. I know there is one that is Forest of Secrets and oh, what's book 4? Shit, I actually don't remember what book 4 was called because 5 is A Dangerous Path and 6 is Darkest Hour. I'm trying to remember. For some reason, I just don't think I have it for what the title of book 4 was. But I know 3 and 4 are a novel, and then or a graphic novel. 5 and 6 are a graphic novel. I would like to read them at some point. I don't give a shit. I'm putting this in S. Like it's one of my favorite things ever, and I had a really good time with it. So there we go. This was my reading tier list. I still managed to get an hour out of this, probably because I went on a lot of tangents, mostly about Susan. But here we go. This was it. I now have one tier list left. That'll be the movie list. I watched a lot of movies. This because I've said I wasn't going to do an album list. Because like I don't really have a lot to say about most of these albums, so I genuinely don't think it would be worthwhile. But I would love. I'm definitely going to do one on movies. It might be a two-parter. We'll see. I don't have my work schedule yet, but I will probably try to knock it out on 1 to 2 of my days off next week. But so that's that. Have a lovely Sunday. See you.